All right. Well, here we are again for another episode of the Gallatin County Sparta Gold Star Precinct Magistrate Primary. Looking to get everybody on. Suppose got here with us today, Bob Searcy. Bob, thank you very much for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this forum. It's going to be nice to just kind of sit around and enjoy the talking about different things, And
Yep, absolutely. Speaking of that, there's no better way to kick things off than tell the folks what's important to you and kind of a little bit about why what motivated you to run and what you got on your mind.
okay, well, I've owned and operated a business in this county for, I guess, 30, 31 years and never been involved in the political side or the politics, but it's getting to that point where I'd like to be able to have a little more of a say in what goes on, and I'd like to be able to represent the people in my district. So it's very important to me if 50 of them say, hey, this is the way we want you to vote, that's the way I vote. Because I'm representing them. I'm not representing Bob. I'm actually representing what the folks in my district have decided they want to do. And, my opinion doesn't matter as much as what their opinion matters. And
Right.
anyway, I think that I'd like to be more involved in our county. I've run a business here, like I said, for 31 years. And my wife and I, we do everything together. So me running for magistrate isn't just me running for magistrate. It'll be a team effort for us both. And we don't just do things one off. We work together on everything we do. So
Have you been out knocking on doors a lot and talking to people? Or?
I've tried to knock on a few doors. I haven't had as much time to spend in that avenue. I'd like to be able to see a lot more people. It's hard to catch people at home because unless you're doing it after 5 o'clock, a lot of people are at their jobs and
Absolutely.
working.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of interesting though. You kind of talking about just you know stripping room talk or sitting on a 5 gallon bucket. It kind of and the your motivation to run. You go back to like our founding fathers and they talk about it. It would be a burden. It's somebody who feels the need. They maybe don't necessarily want to for financial reasons, but they feel the need and they want to go do something to. It's a service, and that kind of sounds like your motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, back when our country was formed, the farmers went to Washington and, they worked in the political aspect of things for a year or two. And then once they got done, they went home. There wasn't any career politicians at all. I mean, those guys, they took care of business, went home, and went right back to farming or raising tobacco or whatever they need to do. And, the biggest problem we have for our nation today is the career politicians. They're killing us on a daily basis. And, 4 to 8 years is plenty. You need 4 to 8 years and go home, get the hell out of the way.
yeah,
Get out of the way. Let somebody else have a say or an opportunity anyway.
and that's kind of been a reoccurring theme I've thought is people talking about government doesn't run like a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for all of us having businesses, it would be interesting to attempt to incorporate some of those ideas, because obviously you can talk a little bit about your business, but you watch where dollars go and you try and make sure a few more come in than go out.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would assume you would want to apply some of those same principles
Mm-hmm.
if you were magistrate.
Yes, sir. It's awfully easy to spend taxpayers' money, but when you start spending your own money, it looks a whole lot different in the grand scheme. So,
Absolutely.
the way I feel about it is we need to spend the taxpayers' money as if it was our own money and not just say, oh, there's a big pile of money over here. We're just going to dig in and do this or do that or whatever we think we need to do. We ought to look at it as, hey, you know what? That's part of my money there, and I worked hard for it, and we need to spend it accordingly, and not just, pitch it around like sometimes happens.
Are there any dollars that you've seen in the county that have been spent that you'd like to address? I know the budget's a big issue right now and money's tight.
Oh, I see things being done, and I could build the building for 500,000, but when it goes through the political system, it's $1,500,000.
Yeah.
And there's $1 million there that's going into various pockets that I don't know. I just don't think that sometimes things are done as frugal as they could be done, because I know what it costs to build the building and to put things up, and a lot of times it just seems like there's a lot of waste in government.
That goes from city or county level all the way up to the federal level.
Oh, exactly.
I'd
Exactly.
say
Look at the
the higher up
fraud.
you go, the worse it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look at the fraud that we're dealing with now. The fraud's unbelievable what we're dealing with now. And if the fraud wasn't there, then we probably wouldn't have the deficit in our nation that we have now. But it's just...
It's amazing how no one seems to be able to tackle that issue.
Yeah.
With the deficit, it's like no matter which party gets in power, they always wind up spending more money than the previous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You talk about fraud and inefficient spending. It's, we were talking about this, before you came in, just there's all these little problems. It's like a 5-gallon bucket with about 50 holes drilled in it. It's like, which hole do you even try to plug first? It's just, it's leaking out everywhere. But that, yeah.
Yeah, the big thing is limiting the volume of holes in the bucket, and our federal government has just got so far out of control, it's unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if it wasn't for Donald Trump being able to rein it in a little bit, think of what would have happened if he hadn't been elected to the presidency of the United States. We wouldn't have had a chance. But in another 4 years, we would have been a third world country, because we were heading that way in a big hurry. I mean, a large hurry.
Yes. Yeah. But kind of circling back there to some stuff that would be going on in your precinct, and honestly, right there in your backyard from the shop out there by Love's. Hot topics, kind of a lot of people asking about the airport, a lot of people asking about the Speedway property and what the future of those are. What are some things that you might know about what's going on out there, or what are some ideas that you would have, or what would you like to see happen with those properties?
Well, the Speedway is really sad, because the Speedway was an asset to our county up until NASCAR. And once NASCAR bought the Speedway, then that asset was taken away from us, because, NASCAR, they don't care about Gallatin County. They don't care about anything at all but how much money they can put in their pocket. And that's their only goal, is the money that goes in their pocket. So, if the Speedway was ever to be returned to what it was before NASCAR, then I think we would do well. But
It seemed to me like when they stopped having the races and shut it down, that they should have went back on the full tax roll then. Because part of the, you always hear about with the bond deals, the reason for doing it is because of the jobs it creates and all the other revenue streams it creates. When they shut it down, why didn't they go back on the full tax roll then?
I think the deal was they kept paying the money. I assume the county struck the deal. The county gets more money now.
But the whole reason for making that deal, though, is not so you have a vacant property that you're collecting 25% of your taxes on. It's because they're going to have a business there that creates jobs and other revenue streams, brings other things into the county.
It'd be interesting to look at that deal from whenever it was struck. There should have been a contingency. You have to be employed.
I guess the contingency plan was the $410,000, but
and then
seems pretty low. I mean, from their, maybe it would have made it a little harder for them to pull the race if they thought, we're going to have to pay $1.6 million in tax this year and not $400,000.
Yeah, if we're not employing people and we're not bringing tourism into the county 3 times a year, that's just a lot of loss from the inactivity there.
Even if it's not NASCAR. Yeah.
Anything,
there were a lot of minor races out there that were good for the county.
Yeah.
But actually, Exit 57 is dead now. It is totally dead. NASCAR owns, or the Smith family owns all the property out there, so it's dead. You can't do anything at all off that exit, because there's no access to any property, and that's a dead exit for the most part. But look at all the money that the state of Kentucky spent putting in the tunnel and, doing all that. And, that's sad because, we spent a lot of money to take care of those guys' needs, and then they just dumped it on us and walked away.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of that, I mean, do you see something? I mean, you're kind of out there in the area. Do you think there's anything else that could be coming? Would you like to see something else on that property? We've had these zoning meetings. What are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
I don't know. I've heard, like everybody else, that of different things that they're talking about, but I don't think anything's nailed down and stuck in concrete yet. So, it's a shame the property didn't open back up so that there could be industry come in and small businesses come in, and because small businesses are the backbone of this nation. That's what pays the tax, and that's what employs the people, and that's just a dead exit. It's a totally dead exit. So something needs to happen. Either the property needs to be broke apart, or maybe, I've always thought maybe one or two or three of the drivers, NASCAR drivers, would come in and buy the speedway and return it to an actual working track on a monthly or a weekly basis.
That would be interesting.
Because then motels would start moving in, and there'd be a lot of things that could happen. But as long as the Smith family owns the property, I don't think anything will happen out there at all until they decide to, get something done.
It sounds like you'd want to see it rezoned so that could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interstate property. That property is prime property for Gallatin County to grow. And, I don't know if y'all realize it or not, but Gallatin County is in a really good position because we have access to the railroad. We have access to Interstate 71. We have access to the Ohio River. And we actually have access to an airport. So right now we have 4 major modes of transportation in our county to take advantage of. And when you start talking to different ones that might be interested in industry, that's a big thing because we're not limited.
I think the other thing that we haven't really talked about is people. We don't necessarily have them here, but we're in between Cincinnati, Louisville, even Indianapolis, where people might relocate. If you did have a factory that came in, if you needed more people, that's got to be appealing to somebody.
Yeah, I believe so because we're 45 miles from the bridge and 55 miles from the bridge down at Louisville. So we're in pretty good shape as far as being kind of in the center.
Also, manufacturing. I mean, this is something we've not talked about on any other show, but there's a really good chance that some of those cities, even include, Lexington, we're near a lot of cities that could need something manufactured, and it might be a lot more affordably done here. You get a little bit out of the city, regulations maybe a little easier, labor maybe a little more affordable, et cetera, et cetera. It's very attractive.
I would think, kind of talking about how government always grows, regulations always grow, might be a good time for those people to relocate. If you're getting ran out of Louisville, can't afford to operate there, might be appealing to come here.
Well, a lot of people don't realize it, but we also have Indianapolis to our north and Lexington to our south. So we're kind of sitting in the center of 4 major population centers with a lot of businesses going on all the way around. So we're in a good spot. We just need to market our community and market things and make it happen. That's the thing.
And kind of along the same topic, it seems like the airport would be attractive to people that would want to locate here. Am I correct in understand? Is that located basically where you grew up? Is that?
Well, my family bought that farm in 1980. My dad and mom did, and anyway, I grew up in Carroll County.
Oh, okay.
And down at Easterly. So, but we farmed that farm from 80 up until, 15, 14, something like that.
Okay.
And anyway, it's just the airport is going to grow a lot because it's a new facility. I'm currently in the process of building a new hangar up there so we can hang our airplanes for different ones. Now, we've just had a guy move in out of Louisville. He's been at Bowman Field for 30 years. He just moved his plane up here. and he moved into the T hangar. And I think when we had the lottery at the airport for the hangar space, we had probably 30 applicants.
Oh wow.
So there was 4 slots provided for people who were in the county, which I got one of them, and 3 others got those slots as well. But now they've got the other 6 slots filled, so now we're out of space again.
So, did you just build one for yourself? Do you fly, or is it to rent? Or
Well, I'm in the process of getting the paperwork through Frankfurt, the building permits, and I'm hoping if everything goes right, I can start building in another 60 days with any luck at all. But I own an airplane, and I'm learning to fly it. So anyway, that's been quite a project, but it's been enjoyable because I've always wanted to fly an airplane and never had an opportunity, and so now I have the opportunity. But there's going to be a lot of things happen in aviation in the next 10 years. You know, personal flight is going to come right to the top. The drones, the small drones that'll carry 2 people.
yeah,
I mean, in the next 10 years, we may even look like the Jetsons, you know?
there is a Jetson that's being sold now. I'm sure you've seen it.
I haven't, no.
So it's called a Jetson. It's just
Is
one
that?
person. It's pretty much a car that flies.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
It's like $150,000.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they'll need an airport to land at. But
Mhm.
if they do, and that's the way things go, I
Mhm.
guess you're lucky to have one.
Yeah, yeah.
What were you gonna ask, Henry? Seemed like you had
Can't remember now.
something on the tip of your tongue there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it seems like, I mean, this is really interesting. It seems like you know quite a bit. You're involved with the airport, and that's very much something that people are curious about and asking about. It sounds to me you have a very favorable opinion of its future. Think that good can come from that
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Oh, I just understand that the more infrastructure we have in our county, the better we look when people look at coming here.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have the infrastructure, then what can you provide them with? But if you have the infrastructure, then there's a reason for them to come here. And
So for the short term, if we're talking about cost to own and maintain an airport when budgets are tight, how would you see that? How should we fund those things?
They're currently wanting to contract with a company out of New York, and I really hope that doesn't happen because I don't want to see us lose the opportunity that we have here to take care of our airport. I think that 4 or 5 of us could get together and no more work than there is out there. We could volunteer and take care of that. It's not that big a deal. Selling a little fuel and keeping the hangars up, there's just not a lot goes on. They're getting ready to build a new FBO, which is a fixed base of operations. And once that's built, I plan on putting some rental cars up there so as the guys fly in, they'll have a way of, renting a car and going where they need to go or doing what they need to do. And, I think we ought to keep the management of the airport local. And I'm not interested in collecting any money for what I do. I'm interested in, I'd like to see us eventually have an aviation program in the school systems. And we could utilize Switzerland County and Gallatin County, Carroll County, Owen County, and we could give the school systems an opportunity to get kids involved in aviation.
That's really no different than Future 42. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
a pathway to a really good career, being
Mhm.
a pilot, whether it's military or civilian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why that would be a bad idea if that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I plan on doing everything I can to make it happen because getting the hangar built will be the first stop on our list, and then we'll just keep working at it. And a lot of people are interested in aviation, but they've just never had the opportunity.
Are there any fees that you all pay for owning a hangar that go towards taking care of the airport?
Well, we are leasing the soil from the airport, so we'll be paying a fee on a yearly basis to lease the soil to build our building on. and it'll probably be a 20 or 30-year lease of some sorts.
That you'll pay yearly
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be your cost to erect that building for
Mhm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a $500,000 project, but it'll be a nice facility. And then when I'm finished with it, it'll revert back to the county, in 20 years or 30 years, however we structure the lease.
And how many of those did you say they had a lottery?
Well, there was a lottery for the space in the 10 T hangars.
Oh, in the T hangar.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you know
Yeah.
if there's anybody else doing the lease deal and building buildings?
Well, I don't know if anybody else has decided to do anything yet or not. I know there's about 20 other pilots that are looking for space up there. So I can just about be assured that I'll have my hangar full once I get the facility up and get the door on the front.
Is that hangar good for one plane?
Oh,
10
no.
planes?
Mine will be 12,000 square foot. So it'll be 120 feet long and 100 foot wide.
How many planes theoretically should that hold?
Well, if everything goes right, it'll hold 10. And if things work out the way I think they will, it'll maybe hold 16 because I'm planning on, I've got a system devised to stack aircraft.
Oh, okay.
And, with a telehandler, we can pick the aircraft up and set it on a cantilever system so that it'll just set right on there. And then the folks that don't fly every day will stack them up, and the folks that fly every day will keep them on the ground.
Interesting.
So anyway, it's all about how many planes you can get in the building and how many slots you can collect money on.
But you feel pretty confident that there's going to be enough traffic out there, there's enough planes and people, pilots, that
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that won't be in trouble at all. Won't be in trouble at all. And, the thing about a lot of folks probably don't realize, the interstate system and the airports are actually built for the military. And we have the luxury of using the interstates and the airports until the military needs them. And then once they need them, they come in and utilize them until they're finished with them. So that's why the airports are built. And the airports aren't built on county money. The airports are built, the regionals are, on fuel tax. So every time I buy a gallon of aviation fuel or jet fuel, that gallon has a tax on it. So every time I buy a gallon, I pay that tax. Well, once that tax accumulates to the point where they can build a new airport, then they build a new airport in an area that it's needed.
I don't know the full story on it, but this field we're looking at here was an airport.
Oh,
I
is
think
that
for
right?
World War II. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
One of the, at some point in our country's history, I don't know
Mhm.
which war, but yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't spend as much money back then, and it was a dirt landing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, there's just so much opportunity in Gallatin County, we have a lot of opportunity. It's just being able to expound on that opportunity and make it work for everybody.
So one thing I want to ask, it would be almost impossible to understand the inner workings of the budget without having been in, not being an incumbent,
Mm-hmm.
and all the ideas sound to me like all, great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If elected and you're in those positions and you're ambitious and you're trying to make these things happen, and you come to find there aren't the funds to do it. Our county government doesn't have the money. What ideas would you have? Would that lead to, trimming back the ideas? Would that lead to ideas to generate more revenue for the county? What would you think in that scenario?
Well, I believe that kind of stuff is a lot of common sense. So if you're looking for money, you have to go and find where the money's available at, and then you got to write the grants and ask for the grants. And it's basically, for all practical purposes, common sense. If you need more money, you figure out where the money is available, and then you go try to secure it. And
All too often, it seems like for government that winds up in a tax increase, or something of that nature. Which, according to the newspaper that we were just looking at earlier, I guess they've been discussing the fact that the budget's extremely tight and potential tax increases right now.
Mm-hmm.
would, if in the next 4 years that becomes a topic, would you see yourself being in favor of or opposed to a potential tax increase to fund, whatever shortcomings in the budget?
Yeah, it's just according to what's in the budget. If we need it, then that's one thing. But if it's just a want or something we really don't need, then I'm not for taxing anybody. I don't think that we need to be taxing everybody to the hilt. I don't like taxes. I think that government should operate on a lot thriftier mechanism than just to want tax money every chance they get an opportunity to grab a hold of it.
So I guess in summary there, would you tend to say that your first instinct would be let's find fat to trim as opposed to let's tax and then if it works.
Also, maybe let's be patient and fill out some grants.
Yeah,
As opposed
exactly.
to
Yes, sir.
taxes or let's get money now. You can fill out grants and be patient. And
The tax should be the very, 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 very last thing you do. I mean, that's the last thing you want to deal with. And there's just, taxing people till they can't stand it is like what Illinois is doing now. Those folks over there, they are taxed to the point that they just can't hardly stand it. And that's not right. That's just not the right way to handle things.
It seems to me that, from my view, no matter how much money you give government, it's never enough. They always need more.
Well,
And at some point, I mean, from my personal perspective, you just got to cut it off and say that's it. I mean, you're going to have to make it work if you can't do what you need to do. I mean, because Billy down the street working at the gas station, he doesn't have that option. When he comes up short in his budget, he has to make it work. And I think government should operate the same way. Taxes are a percentage. Make it work.
So very, very true, And a lot of government spending is just crazy stuff, stupid stuff. And, I'm all about common sense. I never went to college. I don't have no education. I'm just a dumb hillbilly that has a little bit of common sense, But my common sense says that you work it out and you don't tax everybody to death just because you can.
it's also pretty funny to me. I'm thinking, you said it would have to be a need to ever. Well, nobody ever tells us that we're going to increase our taxes for, putting yellow lines on the street. It's always the EMS, like that's the.
Yeah, anytime I hear the shortage is always in the necessity
They
department.
pick the thing that we're all going to side with. We got to have that.
yeah.
Got to make it sound good.
Yeah.
That's how you sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how to sell, man. You got to make it sound like it's something you got to have or else.
Yeah. But, no, I think that's pretty well what you're asking there is we would very much lean towards let's figure out how to make this work with what we have.
Exactly. We don't want to, there's no reason to tax everybody to death, and that's what's happened. It's just it's so easy just to dig into that big pot.
And if I'm not mistaken, when income tax was introduced back in the 1800s or something, it was 2%, and that was a big deal. What is it now?
A lot more than that.
30-something%. I mean,
Yeah.
And
It's double that just at the state level.
Yeah.
More than double.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's scary how things have got so out of control. The politicians have killed this nation, and they kill it every single day. And they're just career people that they're so out of touch with actually what goes on in Gallatin County or Trumbull County or Carroll County. They have no clue as to what happens outside the Beltway. They don't have a clue in hell as to what happens outside the Beltway. And we know what happens outside the Beltway because this is where we live.
Yeah.
Those people live up in a bubble up there in Washington, D.C., and, thank goodness we got a president in there now that's focused on common sense and taking care of running our nation as a business instead of a free-for-all, because for the last 50 years, our nation's been run as just a free-for-all for all practical purposes. And it's never been run like a business. And that's why that politicians need to go and businessmen need to come in, because they will run it like a business. And a politician will run it like there's a big pot of money and you just keep clawing after it,
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I guess Henry's motto is that pot's never big enough.
yeah.
I have never seen many examples where it was big enough. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think while we still got you here, we need to get your opinion on the maybe not data center. You know, if you're going to have a voice as to whether that could, you know, be allowed to happen or not, whether it's rumor, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were to come up, what's your stance on that?
You know, I think those kind of facilities will be a lot better situated away from the general public. You know, if you get them out away from land that can be utilized for different things other than just a data center. I like to see a data center put out in the middle of nowhere where it's not interrupting anybody. It's just sitting out there silent. Nobody knows it's there. It's behind a tree line.
North Dakota.
I hate to see it be put at the Speedway because, you know, if they put that there, that's a lot of really good retail land that can be utilized. And a data center is not going to bring us a lot of employment. There'll only be a few jobs at a data center. So I really would like to see the Speedway utilized as what it's for, or something other than just a facility that isn't going to be good for the community.
But all in all, that area, if the Speedway property and surrounding area was the land in question, you would be highly more in favor of something that generated jobs as opposed to something that didn't.
Exactly, yes, sir. I really would, because, you know, the Speedway's just got, they went in and worked that land over, and they got it to where we can actually use it now from when it was a farm. I used to lime all that land out there before the Speedway was there when I was hauling ag lime for farmers. And anyway, the data center should be put out in the middle of nowhere where there's just, it's not affecting anybody. But that land out there around that interstate exit, that's prime property for businesses and manufacturing and different things like that.
When you say out in the middle of nowhere, do you think there's a place in the county that would be suitable for a data center?
In Gallatin County, we're pretty small. I don't know if we would actually have any land that would be suitable for that. I think in a bigger county like Owen County, there's places in Owen County where sometimes you can see some Indians running around. And that would probably be a better place for it, you know. But anyway, you know, I just would like to see, if they're going to put a data center in, put it away from everybody where we're not bothered with it, you know, and leave the property along the interstate for development and manufacturing and different things that we can develop to add to our community.
All right.
Kind of like we say in agriculture with solar panels. Why the most fertile field in 6 counties? Why can't it go on top of a warehouse building or over a parking lot? Or
Out in the desert, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
You can't farm that stupid old desert land. All that's good for is snakes and cactuses. So that's a really good place for a data center as well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, sounds to me like the moral of your campaign here in running for magistrate, the motivation is to bring some business principles, to bring some common sense to local government. Is that pretty well accurate?
Yes, sir. And I haven't discussed this yet, but my goal for my campaign, or if I do get elected as a magistrate in this district, the county currently pays magistrates around $12,000, $13,000 a year. That's what they make. So my goal is to take that money that they pay me and put it in an interest-bearing account, and that money will then be used to fund the 4-H, the FFA, their projects, anything that I can fund that's community-oriented. I would like to utilize that money. I don't have to have that money. I've been blessed with a good business, and that money is not going to really do me any good. And I would rather put that money right back into Gallatin County, right back into our community. I'd rather fund the fair board with it. I'd rather fund the sports teams if they need uniforms or whatever I can do with that money to put that money right back into our community. Because I'm not going to take that money and go buy me a new car with it or anything like that. I want that money to go right back. And, that's my whole goal in this, is not to take the money and use it for Bob, but to return the money that they pay me right back into the community.
Be a great service.
That's my goal, and that's what I'll do if I'm elected.
All right.
All right. Well, I don't think anybody can argue with that.
No. Maybe we'll start a trend. Maybe maybe we'll get some commitments from some more candidates.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Well, if more politicians would serve the communities because of the good of the community, rather than to what they can pull out of it in dollars, we'd have a lot better politicians.
I agree. A lot of these elected offices, I'm not sure they should have any salary at all.
Yeah.
I'll agree, 100%. But, back in the old days, you went to Washington, you served your country, and you went home. And it's not like that anymore.
No.
But those folks back in those days didn't get paid to be a politician. They didn't get paid at all.
It wasn't
They
their
just,
career.
Exactly.
It was a burden. It was a civil duty. So
And that's the way it should be.
yeah. Well, Bob, thank you very much. You're on there. Here's anything else you want to tell anybody that might be listening in your precinct here while we're still live and going?
Well, I just want to make sure that people understand that I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for taking care of our community and making it a better place to live. And I have no monetary reasons to be in it for the money. I just want to serve the constituents, and I plan on setting up a cell phone, and that phone will be set up as my magistrate's line. And I hope to be able to, before each physical court meeting, with any luck at all, we'll be able to put a schedule out of what's going to be voted for. And I'd like to be able to call me and say, hey, I'm for this or I'm against that. And because my whole goal in this whole thing is to represent the people that elected me, rather than go down and vote what Bob wants to do. I really hope that I can, get that done. And but if there's a project or something coming up for a vote, and 25 of the people that called in say, I want this done, or I want you to vote this way, and 10 say, I want you to vote this way, well, I'm going to vote the way the 25, because that's the majority. So anyway, that's just basically what I'd like to do, and hopefully it'll work out,
All righty. Well, Bob, we sure appreciate you coming on. And unless you all have something else, I guess we can wrap this up.
I think that's about it.
That's good.
All right.
Thank you a bunch.
Thank you.
Thank you for the forum. I really appreciate it.